Welcome back to Our Small House, and in this episode we're basically going to talk a little bit about what is going on with our project, what type of issue we are having. I'm going to go ahead and ask the question, what type of issue are we having?
All right, so today when the cabinet installer opened up the sink base cabinet, which is what you're seeing here, this is the spot that it was supposed to go in. The wood that you see on the floor here is the mark out for um, the cabinet, so that's where it's supposed to fit. But when he opened up the box and tried to put it in, the cabinet was too big in width and he could not fit it in. And we even called the kitchen designer from Lowe's to come out to try and figure it out. At first they thought that they may be able to jimmy it in there, but it turned out it was just too big and there was no way, no how that it could fit in there. And that was after that cabinet was cut into to try to accommodate the plumbing you see here. So the
So did we take any of these measurements whatsoever?
no. So this issue, I think, came up because the Lowe's kitchen designer was trying to utilize that wasted space you see here. Um, when a cabinet is a perfectly rectangular shape, it just slips in, and then you don't get to use that dead space that is triangular to the left and the right there. As you can see, that corner there, it's basically is a wasted space. Her thinking was that she would order a cabinet that would fill out the space so that we can maximize storage space under the sink. But although it's good thinking, it just did not fit our space.
So, so we don't have to turn this into a real downer here.
So
The cabinet, how long does it take to order a sink cabinet?
yeah, so it is a bummer, and it is a big delay in our project and what we dreaded. So it basically, when we found this out today, she called Schuler right away to place a new order for a sink cabinet. But even on Express, they said that it would take 2 to 3 weeks for it to make its way to us. So we want to be optimistic and think 2 weeks and not three, but we're going to count on 3 weeks. Then after that, the cabinet installer has to come back and do this part. But the thing about it is it's not just delaying this cabinet that delays the project. Everything else falls behind. We cannot template our countertop now. We cannot get the backsplash installed. We cannot get our microwave installed because it's waiting on the backsplash. So it's kind of like dominoes, where if one piece doesn't fall, the next pieces will not fall. So yeah, now we're looking at an extra 3 weeks.
Yeah, so what our major issue was is that during the process, the designer decided to make this change without actually asking the cabinet installer. They usually work hand in hand. So what happens is that the designer will design something and then the cabinet installer will ensure that the specifications the designer made are correct and can be doable. In our case, the designer made the change but didn't actually confer with the cabinet installer about the change. So when the cabinet installer got out here, he was pretty surprised on how big it was, And in the original drawings or map he had, um, they in the original map or drawings he had, they had it as basically the one he was expecting to see is a 30-inch design. So when he saw the box and saw how enormous that box was for the cabinet, he started to question it at that point. And it's to us it's detrimental because we don't have another kitchen sink in our house like most households. So being backed up another 3 weeks without a kitchen sink becomes
Or a
sort of
functioning kitchen for that matter.
or a functioning kitchen for that matter is pretty detrimental to our family. And though Lowe's is trying to rectify the issue as fast and as soon as possible, um, we at this point are very in sort of
We're definitely disappointed. And
disappointed. Yes.
yeah, we were really hoping to that the timeline would just move through smoothly, but this adds another 3 weeks onto the project, so we're disappointed.
So my original conversation with the designer, because I've been through construction area zones, especially via my own work life. She told us 4 weeks, and I told her 8 weeks, because I've just been through this type of things, and she laughed at that, or the designer laughed at that. But yeah, these are the type of things that come up in constructions. Um, that go on every day. In our scenario, though, it was just more detrimental because we really needed to stick to the timeline as fast as possible. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm disappointed, but at this point, there's nothing that we can do. So I just have to just follow up with them and make sure that that cabinet gets here as soon as possible. And just follow up and just be patient. And still, the product is that we're still hoping that everything comes out well. That's all I really care about, is that all the cabinets come in, they fit, the countertop fits, everything looks beautiful. That is really the bottom line.
And Lowe's did offer us a couple of options. What were the options?
Um, we can put an old countertop over the area and put our old sink back, and they'll reconnect it so that we can at least have a sink to use. And then next week, the appliances will be delivered. So at least we will have a fridge to use and a sink to use in our kitchen.
Yeah, and they also offered us a couple options on the cabinet install. One of the option was, of course, just to buy the
Oh,
installer's suggested cabinet.
oh
Uh,
yeah. So to resolve this, the fit of the sink base cabinet here, we had two options. Option number one was to basically only order the parts from Schuler for the front facing of the cabinet, which means the door and the faux door that's like next to the sink. And that's the part that is right under your sink. There's normally a faux door there. So just the two front doors and the faux panel under the sink. And then the front paneling, that's it. Just the front part will be Schuler parts, which matches our cabinets. But behind that would be constructed from the just parts of wood that's built behind that to support the sink. So basically, once you open those cabinet doors, what you're going to be looking at is this in the picture, just wall and plumbing, and it will look very unfinished. But the positive of that is that you can utilize that corner as we talked about earlier. So because it is open behind there, you can use those corners and you have a bigger space. And then the second option is to order a 30-inch just square cabinet that will just slide right into the space but then you lose those corners. So after listening to the two options, I opted for the 30-inch cabinet that will just slide in even though we're going to be losing the corner space. We never had that with our original cabinets anyway, and so I'm not really losing out on that space because I never got used to having it. And secondly, I didn't like the idea that with option number one, when you open the doors, it will look very unfinished. You're still looking at construction basically, and I think it looked botchy. And so I like a finished inside cabinet look. And so I went for option number two.
Yeah, so
And
basically option number one was going to speed up the project, though. If we decided to go with option number one, my big dealio is once I heard the options, I was a little agitated because I was definitely at the point where we purchased a cabinet, a nice, full, beautiful cabinet, and that's what I wanted inside. There was a nice, full,
yeah, we'd like a
beautiful,
finish
finished,
inside
beautiful.
cabinet.
So that option didn't sit well with me. I would rather wait and ensure that the finished product is quality versus a speed job due to time constraints.
Or just being able to use the extra space there. To me, I like the idea of a finished inside of a cabinet more so than I like the idea of it being open back there, but you're looking at unfinished wood inside. And I spoke with the cabinet installer, and he felt the same way about that it would just look a lot nicer and be more solid and finished looking if you just go for the smaller cabinet and just slide it right into the space.
Yeah, and I didn't you also talk to him about there was a door on the cabinet that we actually purchased in order, and actually I think it cost us like $100 extra more for this
Yeah,
specific door.
I wanted the tilt tray. It's called a tilt tray.
I
And
feel like we're getting into our bitch fest here, but yeah.
I wanted my tilt tray. Yeah, that's the tray that it's not a drawer. It's you flip it out. It's where that faux panel normally is, right under your sink. You flip it out, and there you can put your sponges. And yeah, that's what it's made for, is your sponges. And I was really looking forward to that, and going with option number one where you're putting on another faux panel in front. That did not appeal to me.
Yeah, so what we're looking at is that plywood. That's where the markings are, where the cabinet should sit. We have them there right now so that the floor guy knows how far the cabinet is going to go in so that he can continue on.
Yeah, because
with
the floor guy is coming tomorrow. And so the cabinet installer today nailed down these boards so that the floor installer can continue, hopefully, with the floor installation tomorrow, because he will see exactly where the cabinet is going to end right there. And so we're hoping that this will not also delay the installation of the floor.
Yeah. So retrospectively thinking, if I had this to do over again, and this is why we're creating these videos, this is a milestone piece. So without this piece, nothing really happens for the cabinets. You could actually have lost an upper shelf, and you would have been fine. You could have maybe lost one of the shelves on the corners and maybe got away with uh, um,
The project
the
moving
project
on.
moving on. But you lose this piece, and pretty much the project comes to an end until this piece is completed. So my suggestion is that if your designer decides to make design changes without your prior knowledge to it, you need to make sure that you're on top of the designer, especially about this central piece that's critical to the entire project, that if a design change is made, that it does run through you. That if,
No, more importantly, that it is
and
ran through with the cabinet installer, because she did actually tell me about the change, but I did not fully understand how the cabinet was going to fit into the space. And I had assumed that she had seen our measurements and had sent him out, and that she knew what would fit in our space. So it's more important that the measurements are communicated to the cabinet installer and for his approval.
yeah, and that's basically what I was going to get back around to, is that the cabinet installer is actually the guy that knows the dimensions well enough. The designer's the one that's coming up with the design and is basically asking the cabinet installer whether or not this design will work. So if a change is made, the process is not only to notify the customer, which it sounds like she did, but to also notify the cabinet installer to get feedback from him on whether or not it will fit or not. And if the designer cannot notify the cabinet installer, I would take it upon the purchaser to ensure that the cabinet installer is aware of the change. So
And
if they're
approves
having
of it.
and approves of it, so if they're having problems with this scenario of trying to get hold of the cabinet installer, it's best for the purchaser to just step in and try and get emails to notify the cabinet installer of the change to make that proactiveness, so that this particular issue won't happen to you.
Yep, and that's our lesson today.
Well, thank you for tuning in to Our Small House. Please leave some feedback and comments below. We'd love to hear from you.